श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्यः कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्ताम् सदा हृदि।
श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्यः कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्ताम् सदा हृदि। लक्ष्मीनेत्रोत्पलश्री सततपरिचयादेश संवर्धमानः नाभीनालीकरिङ्खन् मधुकरपटली दत्तहस्तावलम्बः अस्माकं सम्पदोघानविरलतुलसीनाम सञ्जातभूमा कालिन्दी कान्तिहारी कलयतु वपुषः कालिमाकैटभारेः। We continue with the exposition and study of the Tattvamukta Kalapa of the greatest of Acharyas, one of the greatest of the Acharyas to adorn the Sri Vaishnava lineage of Acharyas, Swami Vedanta Deshika. We have almost completed the explanation of the first shloka, which I have just narrated, chanted. To put things in a nutshell, I would like to mention a few words about this shloka and then proceed forward. So the first shloka of any work that is authored by our Purvacharyas, right from Yamunacharya, is called as a Mangala Shloka. And it is very loosely or in a very gross sense translated as the benedictory verse. What is the content or what should be the content of the benedictory verse in such traditional works or works that deal with traditional subjects? It is mentioned as Ashihi Namaskriya Vastu Nirdesho Vapi Tanmukha. It can be in the form of a benediction. It can be in the form of somebody bowing down to a deity or his acharya or a revered person. Or it can be in the form of what is known as Vastu Nirdesha. It can be in the form of a concise exposition of the subject matter that is going to be mentioned in the text of the work. So here, Acharya Vedanta Deshika does not say that I bow down to such and such a person, a deity or any such person in particular, but he gives a beautiful description about the black-hued divine form of the Supreme Lord. It can be interpreted as Lord Krishna or Lord Hayagriva. Both are the incarnations of Lord Sriman Narayana. So he says, let our prosperity increase by the black hue of the Supreme Lord Narayana or Lord Hayagriva or Lord Krishna, as the case may be. So this is the purport of this shloka. Now we proceed to the second shloka. In this context, I would like to say a few words about how this series of lectures is going to be conducted. As we all know and understand, this work called Tattvamukta Kalapa is a polemical work of the highest order. It takes into account all the darshanas or the schools of thought pertain to almost all the concepts that are dealt with in all the darshanas. And many of the topics require in-depth knowledge of the Sanskrit language and also concepts, philosophical concepts that are propounded in the Shastras. So without this, it will not be possible at all to understand what is being mentioned in this work. But it is once again almost an impossible task to give a word by word translation for all the shlokas and also explain the basic concepts so that even lay persons who may be well informed in other fields to understand these complicated concepts. So the mandate given to me by the organizers of this lecture series is that the purport of these stanzas is to be explained so that people who listen to the lectures will get an inclination about what things are, what is the subject matter of this work, how it is dealt with, and the nuances that are exposed, the nuances of the concepts of the Shastras, how they are exposed in this work. And sometimes we may also focus on the wonderful grandeur of Sanskrit language that is used, the wonderful method of putting things in perspective, and also the conciseness of the work as far as limited usage of words are concerned, usage of words is concerned, even though the meanings are multidimensional. So these are some of the merits of this work, which shall be touched upon in different contexts, depending upon what flashes to me while I talk, and also what the God, the Supreme Lord or our Acharyas goad me to say during the class. So now we go to the second shloka. It is as follows. Before I go and chant the shloka, I would like to give a brief introduction to the shloka. In the second shloka, Vedanta Acharya, as he is popularly known, and as was the honorific given to Swami Vedanta Deshika Venkatanatha by the Supreme Lord Ranganatha himself, he gives an introduction to himself. He speaks about his lineage, how he was blessed by great souls who adorned the Sri Vaishnava Guru Parampara, the lineage of Acharyas, and also how he learned the nuances of all the schools of Indian philosophical systems. So the shloka is as follows. Nana Siddhanta Niti Shrama Vimala Dhiyaha Ananta Surestanujaha Vaishwamitrasya Pautraha Vitatamakhavidhehe Pundarikaksha Surehe Shrutva Ramanujaryat Sadasadapi Tatastattva Mukta Kalapam Vyatani Dvenkateshaha Varada Guru Kripalam Bhitoddama Bhuma. As I mentioned earlier, there are so many aspects that need to be mentioned as far as the meter of the verses that constitute the Tattvamukta Kalapa are concerned. The name Tattvamukta Kalapa, which I have already dwelt upon in some detail. Then the methodology of presentation, which is a very, very important aspect. So there are several dimensions that need to be discussed when we actually read the Tattvamukta Kalapa. As I mentioned just now, we will get glimpses into these aspects as we move forward. So the purport of the second shloka, which I just chanted, is as follows. So Vedanta Deshika here talks about his father and grandfather. So first he says, Nana Siddhanta Niti Shrama Vimaladhiyaha Ananta Surestanujaha. So he says, I am the son of Anantasuri, which was the name of the father of Vedanta Deshika. So what was the uniqueness of this Anantasuri? It says, Nana Siddhanta Niti Shrama Vimaladhiyaha Anantasure Stamuja. So this Anantasuri was the father of Vedanta Deshika. He had studied all the Shastras that were prevalent at that time. And many a times what happens when a person studies different Shastras, there is every possibility that his mind becomes so confused that he is unable to actually arrive at a particular verdict with regard to which Shastra is correct and which is not correct. But here, in this context, Sri Anantasuri was such a great scholar that the knowledge of all the Shastras cleansed his mind. Nana Siddhanta Niti Shrama Vimaladhiya. By putting in a huge amount of efforts to understand all the concepts of the different Shastras. Because in Sanskrit it is mentioned as Shastrajnanam Bahu Klesham Buddhehe Chalana Karanam. It is very difficult to have an integral or holistic view of all the Shastras. That is what is meant in this context. Because each Shastra has its own theory. Though all the Shastras are complementary and supplementary to each other, there are several theories that have apparent contradiction, or these theories are all true in different contexts depending upon the person who studies them, and also depending upon the person who studies them. But ultimately what happens is that they all come together. We call it as Aikakantya. That they all convey the same message, but that can be understood only by a person who has the necessary wherewithal to go deep into the theories of these Shastras and see how they are in tune with one reality. So that's what Vedanta Deshika says about his father. Nana Siddhanta Niti Shrama Vimaladhiya. So by putting in a huge amount of efforts, he has cleansed his mind and arrived at the conclusion that needs to be known. So Anantasurehe Tanujaha. He was the son of Swami Vedanta Deshika, is the son of Anantasuri, who was a great scholar in all the Shastras. Then Vaishwamitrasya Pautraha Vitata Makhavidhehe Pundarikaksha Sure. So he belongs to the Vishwamitra Gotra, and also the father of Anantasuri, who is known as Pundarikaksha Suri. He was a performer of several Vedic sacrifices. Just like the father of Bhagavad Ramanujacharya was known as Keshava Somayaji, who was actually engaged in conducting the Somayaga always, due to which he was known as Somayaji. Pundarikaksha Suri, or the great Pundarikaksha, he was always engaged in performing of Vedic sacrifices. So that's why he is known as Vitata Makha Vidhi. Makha means the Vedic sacrifice. And he used to perform these Vedic sacrifices in a very elaborate manner. That means he was deeply interested in following the Vedic path that ordains that several yajnas and yagas, etc., had to be performed So, for example, you have Nityagnihotra, then you have Darsheshti, Purnamaseshti, etc. The Vedic sacrifices that are to be performed on a daily basis during the fortnights, the full moon day, new moon day, etc. And also occasionally, so they have Agrahayana, Stavipata, there's so many things. Sapta Soma Samstaha, Sapta Havis Samstaha, etc. In total, they say that there are 96 different Vedic sacrifices that are to be performed by a Brahmin. So, Pundarikaksha Sori, who was the grandfather of Vedanta Deshika, was deeply engaged in performing all these sacrifices. So, we see that Vedanta Deshika Pariya belongs to a great lineage of Sanskrit scholars or Shastra scholars. Then he also talks about his great Acharya or Guru, who was known as Atreya Ramanujacharya. In Tamil language, he was known as Kidambi Appullar. So he says, Shrutva Ramanujaryat Sadasadapi. So his Acharya, who was also his uncle, maternal uncle, his mother's son, mother's brother, he was known as Atreya Ramanujacharya. So Atreya Ramanujacharya tutored Vedanta Deshika from a very young age. He taught him, just like Vedanta Deshika's father was a great scholar, Atreya Ramanujacharya also was a great scholar, or he was a greater scholar, we will say probably, because he tutored Vedanta Deshika. So he says, Shrutva Ramanujaryat Sadasadapi. So he understood both the aspects that are to be accepted and also the aspects that are to be refuted. So in the Shastra tradition, we have two important aspects. One is the Purva Paksha, the apparent view regarding a particular concept or theory, and then the Uttara Paksha or Siddhanta, which is known as Sat in this context. Purva Paksha is known as Asat because it gives a partial view of the concepts. Unless you have a complete view of any concept or any matter, one will not be able to do justice and the knowledge will remain incomplete. So from this point of view, it is very much necessary to know the apparent view as well as the conclusive view, which is known as Purva Paksha and Siddhanta. So Vedanta Deshika learned the Purva Pakshas and Siddhantas of all the Shastras from his uncle, who was known as Atreya Ramanujacharya. Having done this, Shrutva Ramanujaryat Sadasadapi Tataha Tattvamukta Kalapam Vyatani Dvenkateshaha Tataha. Thereafter, Venkateshaha or Venkatanatha, that is the name given by the parents of Vedanta Deshika to him, namely Venkatanatha or Venkatesha, both are synonyms. So the proper name given by his parents to Vedanta Deshika was Venkatanatha. So Vedanta Deshika or Vedantacharya was an honorific bestowed on Venkatanatha by the great, none other than the great Lord Ranganatha himself. This is mentioned by Swami Vedanta Deshika himself in his Paduka Sahasra. So, Vyatani Dvenkateshaha Tataha Tattvamukta Kalapam Vyatani Dvenkateshaha. Having heard all the Siddhantas and Purva Pakshas of all the Shastras from his Acharya and also his maternal uncle Atreya Ramanujacharya, Vedanta Deshika is authoring this Tattvamukta Kalapa. And further, there is one more adjective which he gives to himself. Varada Guru Kripadam Bhitoddama Bhuma. One of the senior most and most exalted acharyas that adorn the lineage of acharyas belonging to the Sri Vaishnava tradition is known as Vatsya Varadacharya. His proper name is Varadacharya and he belongs to Srivatsa Gotra, due to which he is called as Vatsya. That a person who belongs to the Vatsa Gotra or the Srivatsa Gotra is generally referred to as Vatsya. This Vatsya Varadacharya was known as Nadadur Ammal. So Nadadur is the village to which he belonged, and Ammal means mother. So the mother of Nadadur, mother who belonged to the village of Nadadur. That's what it literally means. So here a doubt arises as to how come a person who is a male is referred to as mother. There is a wonderful anecdote to substantiate this aspect. So this Vatsya Varadacharya was a great devotee of Lord Varadaraja, who is the presiding deity of the Kshetra or Divya Desha of Kanchipur. And he is also known by several names like Devadhiraja or Devanatha, etc. This Vatsya Varadacharya, being an ardent devotee of Lord Varadaraja, used to offer milk every day with the affair, with a motherly affection. So the Shastras say that a person who is extremely devoted to the Lord will look upon the Lord as his own son. So we see that in the story of Periyalvar or Vishnu Chitta, he dons the mantle of Yashoda, the foster mother of Lord Krishna, and he has sung several stanzas wherein he expresses his motherly love towards Lord Krishna in the Periyalvar Tirumul. Similarly, Vatsya Varadacharya or Nadadur Ammal, as he was known, used to have that kind of motherly affection towards Lord Varadaraja. And every day he used to offer milk to the Supreme Lord. Many a times when we offer something to the Lord, of course, it is not very relevant to the current context. I will not go into details. When some dish is prepared, it has to be offered to the Lord when it is not cold, neither when it is very hot, nor when it is very cold. So it should be heated in an optimum manner, or it should possess the heat that is fit to be consumed. So when we prepare rice, the rice, if it becomes totally cold, it will be very difficult to consume it. Similarly, if it is very hot also, we will not be able to consume it. So it should be neither too hot nor too cold. So this Nadadur Ammal or Vatsya Varadacharya used to ensure that when milk was offered to Lord Varadaraja, it would be of optimum heat that it would be hot, that is exactly of the degree that which is fit to be consumed in a very easy manner and very tasty manner. Since Varadacharya used to do it for a long time, Lord Varadaraja called him as Ammal or my mother. Therefore, he was known as Nadadur Ammal. So he is also known as Varada Guru. This Varada Guru was once again a very, very great scholar. He has authored several treatises on Vishishtadvaita Siddhanta, like Nyaya, several stotra works, and also I don't remember the name immediately. Several works pertaining to Vishishtadvaita Siddhanta, not only Prapanna Parijata, but one work that delineates the adhikaranas of Sri Bhasha and also certain unique aspects that are contained there. Once when Vedanta Deshika was a young boy, he was taken by his uncle Atreya Ramanujacharya to this Varadacharya. And when Vedanta Deshika prostrated to Vatsya Varadacharya, he blessed him by chanting the shloka. Pratisthapita Vedantaha pratikshipta bahirmataha bhuyastraividyamanyastvam bhuri kalyana bhajanam. Yes, Tattvasara is one of the most important works. So he blessed, Vatsya Varadacharya blessed Vedanta Deshika. So in our tradition, it is very important that the blessings of a senior and exalted Sri Vaishnava is the most important aspect. So we call it as Bhagavata Kataksha. So unless Bhagavata Kataksha, Bhagavad Kataksha and Bhagavata Kataksha, among them, we give more importance to Bhagavata Kataksha. So here, Swami Vedanta Deshika was blessed by the great Vatsya Varadacharya by mentioning this shloka that you shall overcome all your opponents by refuting the false theories propounded by them. Pratisthapita Veda, and you shall establish the philosophy of Vishishtadvaita. Pratisthapita Vedantaha pratikshipta bahirmataha. And you shall be a great exponent of the Vedic Vidyas, or the Sanatana Vidyas as we call them. Bhuyaha Traividyamanyastvam Bhuri Kalyana Bhajan. And you shall be the recipient of great prosperity. So, prosperity means not material prosperity, but spiritual prosperity, which is spiritual prosperity alone is prosperity according to Sri Vaishnava philosophy, because material prosperity is momentary. A person may lose all his wealth by the stroke of a pen or within no time. And also he will not be able to carry that material prosperity after he leaves his body. But spiritual prosperity is permanent, and it will actually accompany him, accompany the Atman or the soul, even after the soul leaves the material body. So he said, Bhuri Kalyana Bhajan. You will be the recipient of great prosperity. So that's why Vedanta Deshika says, Varada Guru Kripalambhita Uddama Bhuma. So I am the recipient of great prosperity that has occurred to me on account of the blessings I received from Varada Guru, Vatsya Varada Guru, or Nadadu Ramman. So the tradition is like this. In any person who follows Indian culture, Indian tradition, and also the Vedic culture and Vedic tradition, it is the nature to introduce oneself as mentioning about his Gotra. And when we do Abhivadana, we also mention about the Shakha and Sutra. But that is not very much relevant in this context. So he has mentioned about his Gotra. Then about his father and also grandfather, his Acharya, and also the great person who blessed him. So in Sanskrit, there is a saying, it says, Gurum Prakashayet Dhima. Without worshipping or without remembering the Guru, one should not embark on any endeavor. So here, Swami Vedanta Deshika, who was a model, who is a model for all of us to follow, what he has done is, he has not only mentioned about his Gotra, he mentions about his parents, that is his father and grandfather, his Acharya, and also his benefactor, namely Nadadu Ramman. And since he has learned all the darshanas, he is well qualified to author such a wonderful work. Today, the problem is even mediocres, or in most cases, it is the mediocres who author several works. We have easy access to printing technology, due to which even ordinary works are published with great pomp and splendor. especially after the advent of the IT industry and after people being able to put things on websites. Today we have several hundreds and thousands of lectures on the internet on all topics, whether it is science or whether it is philosophy or whether it is Sri Vaishnava philosophy or whatever it is. Many a times, most of these are of a very inferior quality, or they are not at all authentic, whether they are in the form of writing or whether they are in the form of speech. Today, it has become a big problem for ordinary people to distinguish between authentic lectures and non-authentic lectures. And many a times, non-authentic lectures gain prominence and people fall for them. Anyway, that was not the case in those days. So Vedanta Deshikavarya has authored this. He is fully qualified by all means, in all respects, to author this work because he has put in so much of efforts to learn from his Acharya. He has been the recipient of the grace of the greatest devotee of the Supreme Lord, and also he belongs to a wonderful lineage of scholars. So he is well equipped to propound an authentic work which can stand the test of time. So therefore, he gives a wonderful introduction. One more aspect to be noted here is he actually mentions, he follows the tradition we see right from the Ramayana. So when Lord Rama is asked who he is, he says, Atmanam Manusham Manye Ramam Dasharathatmajam. I am the son of Dasharatha. And in other contexts, he says, Ramo Nama Janaishruta. People call me as Rama. So that is the modesty which exemplifies people following the Indian culture, and the same applies to Acharya Vedanta Deshika also. So with these words, I conclude the exposition of the second shloka, which is as follows. Nana Siddhantaniti Shrama Vimaladhyaha Ananta Surestanujaha Vaishwamitrasya Pautraha Vitatamakhavidhehe Pundarikakshasurehe Shrutva Ramanujaryat Sadasadapi Tatastattva Mukta Kalapam Vyatani Dvenkateshaha Varada Guru Kripalam Hitodama Bhuma. One more aspect I would like to add before moving on to the next shloka is that we all know that Swami Vedanta Deshika has another propitiatory verse about him, which is Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathāryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam. So here, Swami Vedanta Deshika is said to be the recipient of the grace of Ramanuja. This Ramanuja refers not to Bhagavad Ramanujacharya, the original Ramanujacharya. Of course, Vedanta Deshika definitely is a recipient of the grace of him also. But in this context, he refers to his immediate Acharya, known as Atreya Ramanujacharya, about whom we have been discussing all the while just now. So that's what is meant by Ramanuja Daya Patram. And then further adjectives, of course, are well known. Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathāryam Vande Vedanta. So this is what is meant by the adjective called Ramanuja Daya. So now we proceed to the third shloka. Before we understand the meaning of the text of the shloka, a few words in the form of an introduction. So in the Indian tradition, it is very important to know the Vaktri Vaishishtya, Vachya Vaishishtya, and also Adhikari Vaishishtya. What is the uniqueness or speciality of the person who is propounding the work? It is known as Vaktri Vaishishtya, which was just explained now. Then you also have to know, one also has to know the Vachya Vaishishtya. Vachya Vaishishtya is the uniqueness and speciality of the subject matter that is to be propounded. And thirdly, Adhikari Vaishishtya, who is the target audience to whom this work is intended. So the Vachya Vaishishtya and also Adhikari, that is the target audience, and also the uniqueness of the subject matter is mentioned in this shloka. The third shloka of Tattvamukta Kalapa, which is as follows. Prajna Suchyanuvidhaha Kshati Manadhikataha Karkashat Tarkashanat Shuddho Nana Parikshasu Ashithila Vihite Manasutre Nibaddhaha Atanvanah Prakasham Bahumukham Akhilatras Vaidhuryadhuryah Dharyo Heturjaya Dehe Swahridi Sahridayais Tattvamukta Kalapaha. A wonderful shloka from the point of view of Alankara Shastra also, or the science of poetics, which was developed by the Indian poets in a colossal manner. It's a huge ocean of knowledge in itself. Such a school of the science of poetics is not available in any language, definitely not in English language as far as I know, because I formally studied English literature under a Scottish professor who taught it to me. Even now when I discuss these things with the professors of English literature, they seldom know the nuances of these aspects. When you take figures of speech, for example, in English literature, we talk about 8 to 10 figures of speech. For example, we talk about metaphor, we talk about simile, metaphor, personification, and things like that. But in the Indian school of poetics, we have 100 figures of speech in the original, but it has been extended and expanded to 125 figures of speech, which is unthinkable in other literatures of other languages. I'll not go into that aspect now, but one important aspect that is to be noted here is there are about 8 to 10 adjectives which are having 2 different meanings in 2 different contexts. Generally, when we study English language and literature, in some cases, we say it is mentioned as pun intended, P-U-N pun, which means the same word applies to 2 different aspects in 2 different manners. So this is called as pun in English literature. But the pun employed in English literature is of a much inferior nature when compared to the pun or the shlesha that is employed in Sanskrit literature. I will just give a small example and then proceed. So, for example, the very simple example that is given to beginners of the shlesha or a word having multiple meanings that refer to different persons or different nouns. Sarvado madhavah payat sayo ganga madidharat. This is the common verse. But the verse can refer to both Lord Vishnu along with its adjectives in one way of extracting the meaning. And it will apply to Lord Shiva also when it is interpreted in a different way. So we call this as Shlesha in Sanskrit literature. It is defined as Nanartha Samshaya Shlesha. So it depends on how we split the words. Sarvado madhavah payat sayo ganga madidharati. So the first interpretation is with regard to Lord Shiva. Sarvada Umadhavaha Payati. Saha Yaha Gangamadi Dharati. Sarvada Umadhavaha Payati. Umadhavaha is the consort of goddess Uma Parvati, that is Lord Shiva. Let Lord Shiva protect us always. Sahayo Gangamadi Dharati. He who held the river Ganges in his locks. So this is the meaning, this is the interpretation when we split the words in this particular fashion as Sarvada Umadhavaha Payat Saha Yaha Gangamadi Dharati, which reads as Sarvado Madhava Payat Sayo Gangamadi Dharati. Whereas when we split the words in a different manner, all the adjectives refer to Lord Vishnu. Sarvadaha Madhavaha Payat Sahayaha Agam Gam Adidharati. So let Lord Vishnu, who is known as Madhava, Ma refers to goddess Lakshmi, but the consort of goddess Lakshmi is Vishnu, or Lord Narayana as we may call him. So let Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu protect us. How is Lord Vishnu? Sarvadaha. He bestows everything on us, whether it is worldly or otherworldly. He bestows moksha or salvation on us, that is the otherworldly Purushartha. And he also bestows everything worldly, riches, prosperity, etc., as the person may ask for. So he is known as Sarvadaha. Sarvam dadati iti Sarvadaha. Sarvadaha Madhavaha Payati. Saha Yaha Agam Gamadidharati. He who upheld the Agam, namely the mountain. This can be interpreted in several ways, once again, secondary interpretation, tertiary interpretation, etc., etc. So he who held on him, he who held aloft the mountain. So in Kurma Avatara, Lord incarnated, the Lord Narayana incarnated as a mammoth tortoise. And when the milky ocean was churned, when the Mandara Parvata, the staff used to churning, started plunging into the depths of the ocean, Lord Vishnu incarnated himself as a huge tortoise and he went below the Mandara Parvata or the Mandara mountain and held it firm so that the milky ocean could be churned and the nectar could be obtained. Similarly, in the Krishna Avatara, he actually upheld the Govardhana mountain. Sahayaha Agam, Aga refers to a mountain, he who upheld the mountain. And also Gamadi Dharat. Gam refers to, Gauhu refers to the earth. So in the Varaha Avatara, he actually on the divine boar, as Varaha is known, he lifted the earth which was languishing in the depths of Patala, and he once again brought it up so that life can once again begin on earth. So Sahayaha Agam Gam Adidharati. So the same set of words, when split in different manners, refer to different persons and also the different stories associated with it. So just with this one half shloka, a person can author a big treatise by mentioning the story of the Ganges coming down when it refers to Lord Shiva, and also several other stories associated with Lord Vishnu with regard to the events that occurred in the Kurma Avatara, with events that occurred in the Krishna Avatara, and also the events that occurred in the Varaha Avatara. Just see how so many dimensions are concisely mentioned in just half a verse called Sarvado Madhava Payat Sayo Gangamadi Dharati. Similarly, here we actually are talking about the name Tattvamukta Kalapa and also the work Tattvamukta Kalapa itself. So Tattvamukta Kalapa, as I mentioned, literally means the garland of pearls. So in the first interpretation, all the adjectives apply. It is shown how all the adjectives mentioned in the shloka are applicable to the garland of pearls. In the second interpretation, it is shown how all the adjectives apply to the treatise called Tattvamukta. We will just share the screen and see how it happens. So if a person has to sport the garland of pearls, first the pearls have to be pierced so that it can be thread can be passed through them, and then it will become it can become a garland of pearls. Then only one can wear it, or even if it has to be worn as earrings or whatever way, they are to be pierced well. So this garland of pearls is all the pearls that constitute the garland are well pierced. Kshati manadhikataha karkashat tarkashanati. So when the piercing actually is to be done, it is to be done probably with a metallic object or metallic tool. Many a times, if the pearl is not of a good quality, if it's of an inferior quality, when the piercing happens, it will just split into two, so it cannot be worn at all because it splits into two, and you can simply not wear it. So these pearls are of a very high quality, which even when severely pierced with metallic objects do not wither away or do not actually break. Then Shuddho Nana Parikshasu, it passes all the quality tests. So you have nowadays you also have artificial pearls which are manufactured with machines. So this garland of pearls is constituted by pearls that pass all quality tests. So they are actually derived or procured by the oysters that reside deep inside the sea, etc. You can give a big, long interpretation. I will not go into those details now. So I am sure most of you know how to identify or how generally a pure pearl is identified or distinguished from an ordinary pearl. So the garland of pearls that is mentioned here about which it is being mentioned here is that it passes all the quality tests. And then Ashithila Vihite Manasutre Nibaddhaha. The thread that is used to make it into a garland is also of a very wonderful quality. It's of a very high quality and it's not weak, it's strong enough to hold the pearls together for a long, long time. Then Atanvanah Prakasham. The quality of a pearl is actually judged based upon the multi-dimensional splendor that it has when light is passed through it. So the pearls that constitute this garland have multifaceted splendor. So Bahumukham Prakasham Atanvana. And Bahumukha Atanvana Prakasham Bahumukham Akhilatra Savaidhuriya Dhuriyaha. And it can ward off all types of evils. So according to the Jyotisha Shastra, to ward off evils like diseases, and also in some cases, some people may believe or not believe, that is not very important. Some it is mentioned in the Shastras, but we don't have any particular opinion about these things. So when people are subjected to some black magic, in those cases also, people are advised to wear a garland of pearls. So you can take that also into account, or else you can take it as it wards off several diseases associated with the human persona, whether it is the mental diseases or physical diseases, etc. So Akhilatra Savaidhurya Dhuryaha, it is capable of warding off all the evil powers that afflict the human being. Then you have two aspects with regard to everything: Anishta Nivritti and Ishta Prapti. Warding off the obstacles is one thing, but attaining what is to be attained is another thing. So this garland of pearls also ensures the victory of a person in all his endeavors. So Vedanta Deshika Acharya says, Dharyo he turjaya dehe swahridi. So it has this garland of pearls has to be worn by persons. Who are the persons who are fit to wear this garland of pearls? Sahridayaihi. So Sahridaya is literally translated as connoisseurs in English. This is all the more applicable with regard to the study of literature. But in this context, it is very important to know that those who believe in the powers of the garland of pearls should wear it. So it will not work with persons who do not have faith. And today, I read several articles authored by Western doctors and Western thinkers that faith is the most important component in all endeavors. If you have faith, something will happen. And today, even scientists are mentioning this. This is the surprising aspect. So, Dharyo he turjaya dehe swahridi sahridai. The connoisseurs are those who are the believers. It is fit for them to be, it is fit for this garland of pearls is fit to be worn by them who have total belief in what they are doing. And it will ensure victory for them in all their endeavors. Dharyo he turjaya dehe swahridi sahridayaihi tattva mukta kalapaha. See how wonderfully all the adjectives qualify the garland of pearls. So I will chant the shloka with all these adjectives. Prajna sucyanumidhaha ksatimanadhigatah karkashat tarkashanat shuddho nana parikshasu ashithila vihite manasutre nibaddhaha atanmanah prakasham bahumukham Akhilatra Savaidhurya Dhuryaha Dharyo he turjaya dehe swahridi sahridayais tattva mukta kalapaha. This is how we see that the adjectives apply to the garland of pearls. Next, we see how the adjectives apply to the work or treatise called Tattva Mukta Kalapa as well.
Namaskara, Swamin. This is Prashant here. So, to the discussion on the two different meanings which can be had from the same Sanskrit verse, like
Yes.
one case where it refers to Lord Shiva, and in one case it refers to Lord Mahavishnu. Is it possible that these things were done, like whether there are two things which could be possible? One is that it is intended that both the things should be meant over there, or is it possible that because there is, like, for example, in this case, would it be possible that this was done so as to escape persecution from the kings? Because in some of the times, one of the like in this case, maybe the Sri Vaishnavas were targeted by the Chola kings. So is that possible that these things were done so as to keep the good artha in the Sanskrit verses?
In this context, I don't think such a theory would have applied, because this is purely a work that is in Sanskrit. So I don't think there might be such a background in this case. In some other cases, it might have happened, I suppose. But in this context, I don't think there was such a background.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Swami.
Because in Sanskrit, you have several shlokas like this that have Shleshartha. So that is, hundreds of examples are available in the works of Sanskrit. But it requires a lot of time and efforts to show how it happens. But there are several, like I said, hundreds of examples that are available in Sanskrit literature to have these type of meanings.
In some cases, in one of the cases, I also read that in some of the Sanskrit verses, it's not about only about Tattvamukta Kalapaha, but about some of the earlier Sanskrit works. Some of the great saints have purposely put in some words so that those things are not directly copied by somebody.
Yes, that is also there, but this such a technique is employed in Mantra Shastra especially.
Okay.
Where the hidden meaning is different from the literal meaning.
Okay.
Once again, there are several examples like that also. So where the literal meaning is totally different from the hidden meaning. But in this case, it's not like that.
Okay.
But there are several shlokas which immediately come to my mind, where the hidden meaning is different and the literal meaning is different. In several cases, there might be 3, 4, 5 meanings also. So we have shlokas in Sanskrit which give four, which applies to 4 contexts, 3 contexts, etc. If one sentence is mentioned once, then it can give only one meaning. Only one type of meaning. If it has to give multiple meanings, it has to be mentioned multiple times. That is in another context. Kavitarkika Simhaya Kalyana Gunashaline Srimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha.
कवितार्किकसिंहाय कल्याणगुणशालिने श्रीमते वेङ्कटेशाय वेदान्तगुरवे नमः.